No one ruined your life. Not your parents, not your past, not the system, not the people who disappointed you. You trusted comfort more than discipline, and comfort never keeps its promises. That truth removes every escape route, every excuse, every place to hide. You weren't destroyed by chaos. You were softened by ease. Comfort whispered when discipline demanded effort. It told you to rest longer, to wait, to delay, to treat tomorrow like a guarantee. Discipline stayed quiet, because discipline does not beg, it waits to see who is serious. Life doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes slowly through small choices that feel harmless. You didn't lose your strength in one failure. You lost it by choosing what felt good over what was necessary. Comfort feels like relief, but relief is not progress. Rest is not recovery if you never worked. Peace is not peace if it's built on avoidance. Comfort promises safety while stealing sharpness, lowering standards, shrinking tolerance for discomfort, until effort itself feels threatening. That's the trap. The Stoics didn't hate pleasure. They rejected dependence on it, because dependence makes character fragile. Look honestly at your life. Where did you loosen your grip? When did you stop training your body, your mind, your values? Most people don't fall because they're attacked. They fall because they let go. Weakness is practiced slowly through avoidance, rehearsed with excuses that sound reasonable. Comfort loves that language. Discipline is honest. It doesn't care how you feel today. It cares who you become tomorrow. Freedom is internal freedom from being ruled by impulse. Ask yourself who has been in control lately, your principles or your moods. Moods change, principles endure. A life ruled by comfort is predictable. A life ruled by discipline is grounded. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer negotiations with yourself. Each delay teaches your mind that resistance works. Comfort trains expectation of ease. Discipline trains tolerance for reality. Life will never be gentle, but it will respect you when you respect yourself enough to do the work. Pain is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Pain teaches, strengthens, clarifies. Comfort numbs, and numbness is where potential dies quietly. If you feel stuck, frustrated, disappointed, good, that's honesty returning. Stop asking why this is happening to you, and start asking what must be done now. Discipline is self-respect in action. Waking when you don't want to. Training when comfort suggests rest. Choosing order when chaos is easier. Strength is built through friction. Confidence is the side effect of kept promises. Act despite resistance. One hard choice, then another. Consistency, not drama. Preparation, not hope. Your stress and dissatisfaction are feedback, not punishment, telling you something inside is misaligned. Awareness removes innocence. You can't unknow this. Comfort will negotiate one last time, urging softness without structure. But softness without structure collapses. You don't need intensity, you need reliability. Master impulses, not people. Control reactions, not the world. Your life will sink to your daily standards. Let tests come. They reveal what's real. Nothing magical needs to happen. The work is waiting. Comfort has taken enough from you. Discipline gives it back quietly, completely. You won't have a dramatic story, only this. You stopped lying to yourself, stopped choosing comfort, and did what needed to be done. Discipline keeps its promises. You are not lost. You are undisciplined, and those two are not the same. Being lost means there is no direction. Being undisciplined means you know exactly what must be done, but keep postponing it. Confusion is often just resistance in disguise. The mind pretends it doesn't know the way because the way requires effort, sacrifice, and consistency. So it delays, distracts, and drifts. The Stoics saw through this. They understood that clarity is not found by thinking longer, but by acting sooner. Action cuts through doubt, the way truth cuts through noise. You don't need to feel ready. Readiness is comfort's favorite lie. You move first, and the feeling follows. Every day you wait, you strengthen the habit of waiting. Every day you act, you strengthen the identity of someone who can be trusted. Your biggest problem is not pain, fear, or lack of opportunity. It is tolerance. You tolerate disorder. You tolerate unfinished work. You tolerate versions of yourself you secretly do not respect. And whatever you tolerate becomes permanent. Life does not reward potential. It responds to proof. The Stoics trained themselves to endure because endurance creates independence. When you can endure discomfort, you no longer beg life for ease. You stop asking for permission. You stop negotiating with weakness. You become stable. Stability is rare, and because it is rare, it is powerful. A stable person is not easily manipulated, rushed, or shaken. They do not chase pleasure to escape themselves. They do not need chaos to feel alive. They build structure so their mind can be calm. Discipline is not about control for its own sake. It is about removing internal conflict. When your actions match your values, the mind becomes quiet. That quiet is not boredom, it is strength. Most people fear that quiet because it reveals everything they've been avoiding. But avoidance is expensive. It charges interest in regret, anxiety, and self-doubt. The Stoics chose to pay the price up front through effort. They understood that the body obeys what the mind repeatedly commands, and the mind obeys what you repeatedly practice. If you practice excuses, you become fragile. If you practice follow-through, you become formidable. You don't need to conquer the future. You only need to win the next decision. Stand up when you said you would. Finish what you start. Do not abandon yourself in small moments. Those moments are your life in disguise. Over time, discipline reshapes identity. You stop asking who you could become and start recognizing who you already are. A person who does not run from discomfort. A person who does not wait to be saved. A person who understands that peace is earned through order and confidence is built through repetition. This is not a loud transformation. It is quiet, almost boring. And that is why it works. While others search for motivation, you build momentum. While others talk, you execute. And one day, without announcement, you realize you are no longer trying to become disciplined. You are simply living as someone who is. You don't need to become ruthless. You need to become honest. Honest about what you avoid. Honest about where you soften the truth to protect your feelings. Honest about how often you choose what is easy and then wonder why life feels heavy. The Stoics didn't believe life was unfair. They believed life was exact. It gives back what you repeatedly practice. If you practice avoidance, life teaches you anxiety. If you practice effort, life teaches you confidence. Nothing mystical, nothing personal, just cause and effect unfolding quietly every day. You say you want peace, but peace does not come from comfort. It comes from order. From knowing your day has a shape, from knowing your word means something, from knowing that when things get difficult, you do not disappear. Most people are exhausted not because they do too much, but because they live in constant internal conflict. They promise themselves change and then betray that promise. Over and over, that fracture inside the self is where fatigue is born. Discipline heals that fracture, not instantly, but permanently. When life got heavy, did you rise to the standard you talk about? Or did you discover that your principles only existed when things were easy? Because everyone has discipline when life is light, and everyone is strong when nothing is demanding their strength. But the Stoics never measured a person by their words in comfort. They measured them by their behavior under pressure. Because pressure does not create character, it reveals it. And when life pressed down on you, it exposed what you truly rely on. Not what you post, not what you promise yourself, but what you default to when you are tired, afraid, disappointed, and alone. And most people don't fail because they lack knowledge. They fail because they refuse to obey what they already know. Because when discomfort arrived, you didn't suddenly become confused. You became honest. Honest about how quickly standards soften when they cost something. Honest about how easily principles are negotiated when pain is involved. Because Stoicism is not about pretending pain doesn't exist. It's about refusing to let pain lower your code. Because anyone can speak about discipline, but few can keep it when the body aches. Anyone can speak about patience, but few practice it when nothing improves. Anyone can speak about self-respect, but few protect it when no one is watching. And every time life got heavy, it offered you a choice to become sharper or softer. Sharper in responsibility, sharper in restraint, sharper in awareness. Or softer, more reactive, more emotional, more dependent on comfort, and comfort feels like relief. But it quietly steals your future, because every time you choose comfort over principle, you train your mind to abandon you when you need it most. Which is why so many people feel empty, not because life is cruel, but because they no longer trust themselves. Because they've seen how easily they break promises to themselves, how quickly they fold under pressure, how fast their standards disappear when things get hard. And the soul remembers that betrayal, because hardship doesn't ask if you are talented. It asks if you are consistent. It asks if you are who you claim to be when no one is rewarding you for it. Because character is not proven in moments of inspiration, but in moments of exhaustion. When you are tired, who do you become? When progress is slow, what do you abandon first? Your routine, your values, or your excuses? Because the Stoics understood, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your habits. And when life got heavy, habits were all you had left. So if you collapsed before, it wasn't because you were weak. It was because you were untrained. Because strength is not intensity, it is stability, the ability to remain governed by principle when emotion demands control, the ability to act without reassurance, to endure without applause, to continue without comfort. Because life does not respond to intention, it responds to repetition, and repetition shapes identity, and identity determines behavior under pressure. So when life stops surprising you with its weight, you were supposed to stop asking why and start asking who you are when it arrives. Because maturity is not avoiding pain, it is no longer allowing pain to decide who you become. Because life is not hostile, it is exact. It returns what you practice. And if you practice avoidance, it returns anxiety. If you practice discipline, it returns self-trust. If you practice consistency, it returns peace. Because every response you repeat becomes a reflex, and reflexes are what carry you when thinking is exhausted. Which is why the Stoics trained daily before crisis arrived. Because you do not rise in chaos. You reveal what you rehearsed. And your real standard does not live in your quotes. It lives in what you tolerate, what you excuse, what you delay, and the danger is not collapse, but normalizing compromise, because once lowering your standards becomes familiar, raising them feels extreme. Yet strength returns the same way it left, one decision at a time, doing what you said you would do, especially when it is boring, uncomfortable, and unseen. Because discipline is not heroic, it is repetitive, and repetition is how character is carved. Because order is not restriction, it is relief, and chaos exhausts the soul more than effort ever could. Because eventually you realize no one is coming to save you, not motivation, not clarity, just your systems, your habits, your standards, and your choices, and your life becomes the sum of what you repeatedly tolerate. So when life gets heavy again, and it will, you don't ask for lighter weight. You build a stronger back. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop debating with impulse. You act first and let feelings follow. Because action stabilizes emotion, not the other way around. And you don't wait to feel ready. You move and let readiness catch up. Because life does not require perfection. It requires direction. And falling does not disqualify you, but refusing to correct does. So you resume quietly, without drama, without announcement, because that quiet return to discipline is strength. And when the weight presses down again, let it find you already moving, already grounded, already committed, not loud, not emotional, not collapsing, just doing what must be done, again and again. Because in the end, life does not remember what you talked about. It remembers who you were when it got heavy, and that person is who you truly are. So make sure they are someone you respect. You don't break when life becomes hard. You break when your inner order collapses, because difficulty is not the enemy, disorder is. And the Stoics knew that a man can endure almost anything if his mind is governed, but the moment the mind loses command, the body follows it into chaos. Because suffering without structure turns into despair, while suffering with discipline turns into strength. And most people are not crushed by the weight of responsibility. They are crushed by the absence of it. Because without responsibility, the mind wanders. And when the mind wanders, it invents fears, excuses, and self-pity to justify inaction. But the Stoic understands that clarity is not found in emotion. It is found in action. And peace is not something you feel first and then behave from. It is something you behave into. Because every time you act in alignment with reason, you restore order inside yourself. And order is what quiets the noise. Because chaos is exhausting, not effort. And this is why people feel tired even when they do little. Because they live in constant inner conflict, promising change and then betraying themselves, over and over. And that fracture inside the self is where fatigue is born. Because the mind does not forget broken promises, it keeps score, and each one weakens self-trust. Which is why the Stoics valued self-command above all else. Because when you can command yourself, you are free. And when you cannot, you are enslaved quietly by comfort, impulse, and fear, dressed up as logic. Because the most dangerous prison is not made of iron but of habits you refuse to confront. Habits that feel harmless until years pass and nothing changes. And when life becomes uncomfortable, those habits are exposed. Not to shame you, but to show you where discipline must be applied. Because discipline is not punishment. It is protection. Protection from becoming someone you no longer respect. And the Stoic does not wait for life to be calm before acting rightly. What you cannot control is not your burden. How you respond is your duty. Peace begins the moment responsibility replaces complaint. Most people are not exhausted by life itself. They are exhausted by arguing with reality, by wishing the past had listened, by demanding the world behave differently, by replaying conversations that are already over, by resisting facts that have already arrived. You feel chaos, not because life is unfair, but because you keep trying to control what was never yours to command. You were never assigned the task of controlling outcomes. You were assigned the task of governing yourself. Life is not cruel, and it is not kind. It is exact, and it responds not to what you wish, but to what you practice. Every complaint is an abdication of power. Every excuse, a quiet surrender. And every time you say, "It shouldn't be this way," you step out of alignment with reality. Reality does not argue back. It simply continues. Chaos enters when the mind refuses to accept its limits. Peace enters when the mind accepts its responsibility. You do not control the delay, the rejection, the loss, the timing, the opinions, or the randomness of events. But you control whether you remain disciplined when it's inconvenient, whether you respond with clarity or emotion, whether you rise or rot internally while waiting. Responsibility is not punishment, it is freedom. The moment you stop blaming circumstances, you reclaim authorship over your life. A man at war with reality is always tired. A man aligned with reality is rarely shaken. Peace is not comfort, it is order. Order in how you think, how you speak, how you act when no one is watching. You don't calm chaos by demanding silence from the world. You calm chaos by becoming disciplined enough not to react. The world will test you endlessly, not because it hates you, but because pressure reveals structure. The question is never why this happened to you, but what it requires of you now. Complaint is a habit of weakness. Responsibility is a habit of power, and habits decide destiny. When responsibility replaces complaint, excuses die. When excuses die, action begins. When action becomes consistent, confidence is born, and confidence quiets chaos without noise. Discipline is direction, not restriction, telling your energy where to go when emotions try to scatter it. Two people face the same storm, one collapses, the other sharpens, and the difference is responsibility. Peace is built in mornings. You don't feel like showing up in silence, when no one understands your struggle. In restraint, when emotion begs for release. You feel fear, but you don't let it drive. You feel anger, but you don't let it decide. You feel pain, but you don't let it rule. Chaos will come, but it will not destroy you unless you abandon responsibility. When you stop asking life to change and start asking yourself to respond better, peace enters quietly, not as relief, but as strength. Strength does not announce itself. It remains intact when everything tries to pull it apart. Life is training, not a performance, and nothing is wasted unless you refuse the lesson. The Stoic builds peace before resolution arrives, generating confidence from conduct, remaining grounded when things go well and upright when they do not. Ego wants recognition, responsibility wants order. Chaos feeds on ego, but responsibility starves it. Fear survives in confusion. Clarity removes fear. Mastery is governance of the self. Small, disciplined responses repeated daily outlast bursts of motivation because responsibility is structural and structure holds. Most people fail not from weakness, but from lack of structure. Responsibility closes the door to chaos by creating routines, principles, and boundaries. Identity, anchored in responsibility, makes external chaos background noise. Feelings are signals, not commands. The pause between stimulus and response is power. Peace is not the absence of problems, but the absence of self-betrayal. Protect your standards quietly. Fight the single battle of remaining responsible when complaint would be easier. Ownership changes how you walk through life. You stop waiting for rescue and become the arrival. Chaos asks whether you will abandon yourself. The Stoic answers no, daily, consistently. Consistency builds self-trust, and self-trust quiets the mind. Train attention, restraint, and endurance to become reliable. Deal with what is in front of you, one task, one response, one decision at a time. Preparation is peace. Responsibility replaces complaint, excuse, and emotional indulgence, and in that replacement, peace takes root as self-respect. Command of the self is earned in repetition. Peace is constructed choice by choice. Problems become procedural. Strength becomes quiet. Requirement replaces meaning. Effectiveness becomes peace in motion. Responsibility proves itself through action, accumulating into self-respect, the deepest peace. Live peace as a consequence of discipline replacing impulse and clarity replacing chaos. Carry your duty fully, without negotiation, and the world may remain unpredictable, but you will remain steady. Steadiness practiced long enough becomes unshakable. An inner order, no external disorder can dismantle. Become so disciplined that noise loses its power over you. So disciplined that distraction knocks, but you do not answer. So disciplined that confusion exists around you, but never inside you. Because chaos is not just storms and shouting. Chaos is inconsistency. Chaos is impulse. Chaos is emotion without command. Chaos is reacting instead of choosing. And the Stoic understands this. You do not defeat chaos by fighting the world. You defeat chaos by governing yourself. Most people want calm without control. They want peace without structure. They want results without ritual. But the ancient mind knew better. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire not by force, but by order first within himself. Epictetus taught freedom not by escape, but by discipline. Seneca warned that a man who cannot command his time will be commanded by life. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is protection. When you are disciplined, chaos cannot manipulate your emotions. When you are disciplined, chaos cannot steal your focus. When you are disciplined, chaos cannot drag you into panic, fear, or impulse. Look around. The world is loud. Everyone is reacting. Everyone is offended. Everyone is tired, confused, overstimulated. But the Stoic does not follow the crowd. The Stoic builds a fortress of habit. You wake up at the same time not because you feel like it, but because you decided long ago who you are. You train your body not to look impressive, but to remind your mind who is in charge. You work when it is uncomfortable, not because motivation is present, but because discipline never leaves. Chaos feeds on weak routines. It enters where structure is missing. It thrives where standards are low. That is why discipline must become automatic, not emotional, not negotiable. You do not ask yourself, do I feel like doing this today? You ask, is this aligned with the man I am becoming? And then you act. Discipline means you do not scroll endlessly while your goals wait. Discipline means you do not speak when silence is stronger. Discipline means you do not explain yourself to people who do not respect your path. The Stoic understands that self-control is not weakness, it is dominance. The strongest man in the room is not the loudest. It is the one who can sit with discomfort and still act with clarity. Chaos wants urgency. Discipline chooses patience. Chaos wants emotion. Discipline chooses reason. Chaos wants reaction. Discipline chooses response. This is how you become untouchable. Not by isolating yourself from the world, but by mastering your response to it. You will still face loss. You will still face uncertainty. You will still face pressure. But pressure only crushes what is unprepared. A disciplined mind does not break under stress, it sharpens. When problems appear, you do not panic. You assess. You adapt. You act. When things go wrong, you do not complain. You correct. When people doubt you, you do not argue. You improve. This is Stoic power. It is silent. It is steady. It is relentless. Discipline trains you to do what must be done, especially when no one is watching, especially when praise is absent, especially when results are delayed. Because the Stoic does not chase applause, he chases alignment. Every day becomes a vote for the person you are building. Every habit becomes a brick in your inner citadel. And over time, chaos stops knocking because it knows it cannot enter. You no longer depend on mood. Tiamati Den. You no longer depend on motivation. You no longer depend on external conditions. You move whether the day is good or bad. You act whether you are praised or ignored. You stay consistent, whether life is calm or cruel. This is why discipline creates freedom. Freedom from impulse, freedom from fear, freedom from emotional slavery. The disciplined man is not controlled by pleasure or pain. He uses both as training. Pain becomes instruction. Failure becomes feedback. Delay becomes refinement. Nothing is wasted. And eventually people will notice something about you. Not because you announce it, but because your presence is different. You are calm when others rush. You are steady when others panic. You are focused when others scatter. That is when chaos truly loses. Not because it disappeared, but because you outgrew its reach. Discipline is not built in moments of inspiration. It is built in moments of resistance. When you do not feel like waking up, when your body is tired, when your mind looks for excuses, that is where discipline is forged. Anyone can act when life is easy. Anyone can stay focused when conditions are perfect. But Stoicism was never about perfection. It was about preparedness. The disciplined man does not wait for ideal circumstances. He becomes the circumstance. Chaos looks for cracks, late nights without purpose, loose commitments, unkept promises to yourself, small compromises repeated daily. That is how chaos enters lives quietly. Not with destruction, but with neglect. So the Stoic closes the doors early. You eat with intention. You sleep with intention. You speak with intention. You move with intention. Nothing random. Nothing careless. Nothing excessive. Not because pleasure is evil, but because excess weakens command. You begin to realize something powerful. Most suffering is not caused by events. It is caused by lack of structure in response to events. And that order becomes visible. Your body carries less tension. Your speech carries less noise. Your decisions carry more weight. People feel it before they understand it. They call it calm. They call it focus. They call it presence. But what it really is discipline made visible. The Stoic accepts reality as it is, but refuses to let it dictate his behavior. Rain does not cancel discipline. Fatigue does not cancel discipline. Criticism does not cancel discipline. Only choice does. And you choose order. Life can press. Life can test. Life can shake the ground. But it cannot shake you, because you built something internal that does not depend on external calm. This is not emotional numbness. This is emotional command. You still feel, you still care, but you decide. Discipline is not switched on during crisis. It is lived during ordinary days. Small choices, quiet repetition, daily order. That is where strength is stored. Character is not revealed in extremes, but in consistency. You stop wishing life were easier. You become stronger. Because a disciplined man does not need life to be fair. He needs himself to be consistent. And that consistency creates a calm that chaos cannot fake. When everything collapses, people look for something solid. And the disciplined man is already standing. No panic, no drama, no excuses, just action. That is why discipline is the highest form of self-respect. It is proof that you value your future more than your impulses. It is proof that you trust yourself to lead. So keep building in silence.